Hello, Internet. It's my birthday today, and I will use that time to do what we've been doing. Yes, that's right. It is time to read the Bible. Before we get started, I'll just give you a brief update. Had a good birthday. Went to, well, I had to work, but other than that, I went to eat at one of my favorite barbecue places in town. Got a couple nice presents, and some big beef jerky, and a movie I've been wanting for a while. So been good. Talked to some friends and family and such. Nice. Anyway, let's get into it. We will pick up in Exodus chapter 21, verse 22, and we will go to chapter 23, verse 13. If two men are fighting and in the process hurt a pregnant woman so that she has a miscarriage but lives, then the man who injured her shall be fined whatever amount the woman's husband shall demand, and as the judges approve. But if any harm comes to the woman, and she dies, he shall be executed. If her eye is injured, injure his. If her tooth is knocked out, knock out his, and so on. Hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, lash for lash. If a man hits his slave in the eye, whether man or woman, and the eye is blinded, then the slave shall go free because of his eye. And if a master knocks out his slave's tooth, he shall let him go free to pay for the tooth. If an ox gores a man or woman to death, the ox shall be stoned, and its flesh not eaten, but the owner shall not be held, unless the ox was known to gore people in the past, and the owner had not been notified, and still the ox was not kept under control. Oh, excuse me, had been notified. That makes more sense. In that case, if it kills someone, the ox shall be stoned, and the owner also shall be killed. But the dead man's relatives may accept a fine instead, if they wish. The judges will determine the amount. Well, that seems reasonable. The same law holds if the ox gores a boy or a girl. But if the ox gores a slave, whether male or female, the slave's master shall be given 30 pieces of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. I'm trying to remember how much silver Jesus was sold for, if it was 30 or not. Because if so, I find it funny that like Jesus' value to Judas was the same as a slave. That's kind of interesting. If that's the same amount, I think it is. I'll tell you what. If a man digs a well and doesn't cover it, and an ox or donkey falls into it, the owner of the well shall pay full damages to the owner of the animal, and the dead animal shall belong to him. If a man's ox injures another, and it dies, then the two owners shall sell the live ox and divide the price between them, and each shall also own half of the dead ox. But if the ox was known from past experience to gore, and its owner has not kept it under control, then there will not be a division of the income, but the owner of the living ox shall pay the full for the dead ox, and the dead one shall be his. And grill that up nice on a propane grill. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and then kills or sells it, he shall pay a fine of 5 to 1. 5 oxen shall be returned for each stolen ox. For sheep the fine shall be 4 to 1. 4 sheep returned for each sheep stolen. If a thief is caught in the act of breaking into a house and is killed, the one who killed him is not guilty. You hear that, Democrats? You trespass, you're going to get my shotgun right up your behind region. But if it happens in the daylight, it must be presumed to be murder, and the man who kills him is guilty. Okay, so there's some back and forth on that one. If a thief is captured, he must make full resolution. If he can't, then he must be sold as a slave for his debt. If he is caught in the act of stealing a live ox or donkey or sheep, whatever it is, he shall pay double the value of his as his fine. If someone deliberately lets his animal loose and it gets into another man's vineyard, or if he turns it into another man's field to graze, he must pay for all damages by giving the owner of the field or vineyard an equal amount of the best of his own crop. I find it funny that I chose the Hank Hill voice for this particular reading, and it's the most boring, regimental, rules lawyering passages we've had such far. Hank would love this. If the field is being burned off and the fire gets out of control and goes into another field so that shocks of grain or the standing grain are destroyed, the one who started the fire shall make full restitution. If someone gives money or goods to anyone to keep for him, and it is stolen, then the thief shall pay double if he is found. But if no thief is found, then the man to whom the valuables were entrusted shall be brought before God to determine whether or not he himself has stolen his neighbor's property. In every case in which an ox, donkey, sheep, clothing, or anything else is lost, and the owner believes he has found it in possession of someone else who denies it, both parties to dispute shall come before God for a decision, and the one whom God declares guilty shall pay double to the other. If a man asks his neighbor to keep a donkey, ox, sheep, or any other animal, and it dies, or is hurt, or gets away, and there's no eyewitness to report just what happened to it, then the neighbor must take an oath that he has not stolen it, and the owner must accept his word, and no restitution shall be made for it. But if the animal or property has been stolen, the neighbor caring for it must repay the owner. If it was attacked by some wild animal, he shall bring the torn carcass to confirm the fact, and shall not be required to make restitution. If a man borrows an animal, or anything else, from a neighbor, and it is injured or killed, the owner is not there at the time, and the man who borrowed it must pay for it. But if the owner is there, he need not pay for it. And if it was rented, then he need not pay because this possibility was included in the original rental fee. If a man seduces a girl who is not engaged to anyone and sleeps with her, he must pay the usual dowry and accept her as his wife. Kind of a rushed wedding, but I suppose that's fair. If her father utterly refuses to let her marry him, then he shall pay the money anyway. That's reasonable. Father should have a say. Boy may not be right. A sorceress shall be put to death. Anyone having sexual relations with an animal shall certainly be executed. Anyone sacrificing to any other god than Jehovah shall be executed. You shall not oppress a stranger in any way. Remember, you yourselves were foreigners in the land of Egypt. You must not exploit widows or orphans. If you do so in any way, and they cry to me for my help, I will surely give it. And my anger shall flame out against you, and I will kill you with enemy armies, so that your wives will be widows and your children fatherless. If you lend money to a needy fellow Hebrew, you are not to handle the transaction in an ordinary way, with interest. If you take his clothing as a pledge of his repayment, you must let him have it back at night, for it is probably his only warmth. How can he sleep without it? If you don't return it, and he cries to me for help, I will hear and be very gracious to him, at your expense. For I am very compassionate. You shall not blaspheme God, nor curse government officials. Ooh. Your judges and your rulers. That's a tough one right there. I tell you what. You must be prompt in giving me the tithe of your crops and your wine, and the redemption payment for your oldest son. I think somebody's wishing me a happy birthday. Anyway, let's continue. As to the firstborn of the oxen and the sheep, give it to me on the 8th day, after leaving it with its mother for 7 days. And since you yourselves are holy, my special people, do not eat any animal that has been attacked and killed by a wild animal. Leave its carcass for the dogs to eat. Do not pass along untrue reports. Do not cooperate with an evil man by affirming on the witness stand something you know is false. Do not join mobs intent on evil when on the witness stand don't be swayed in your testimony by the mood of the majority present. And do not slant your testimony in favor of a man just because he is poor. If you come upon an enemy's ox or donkey that has strayed away, you must take it back to its owner. If you see your enemy trying to get his donkey onto its feet beneath a heavy load, you must not go on by, but must help him. A man's poverty is no excuse for twisting justice against him. Keep far away from falsely charging anyone with evil. Never let an innocent person be put to death. I will not stand for this. Take no bribes, for a bribe makes you unaware of what you clearly see. A bribe hurts the cause of the person who is right. Do not oppress foreigners. You know what it's like to be a foreigner. Remember your own experience in the land of Egypt. Sow and reap your crops for 6 years, but let the land rest and lie fallow during the 7th year. And let the poor among the people harvest any volunteer crop that may come up. Leave the rest for the animals to enjoy. The same rule applies to your vineyards and your olive groves. Work 6 days only, and the rest 7. Rest the 7th. This is to give your oxen and donkeys a rest, as well as the people of your household, your slaves and visitors. Be sure to obey all these instructions, and remember, never mention the name of any other god. Got a little something in my eye. Hank's got a kind of a weird timbre to his voice, but I think I got pretty close. It's kind of like deep and high and scratchy at the same time, but I think I'm getting in there.
Let's move on to the next King of the Hill characters, as we read Matthew chapter 24, verses 1 through 28. As Jesus was leaving the temple grounds, his disciples came along and wanted to take him on a tour of the various temple buildings. But he told them, all these buildings will be knocked down with not one stone left on top of another. Pshaw! When will this happen? The disciples asked him later, and he sat on the slopes of the Mount of Olives. What events will signal your return and the end of the world? Jesus told them, don't let anyone fool you, for many will come claiming to be the Messiah and will lead many astray. The government will do it.
I'm sorry, I picked this on random. It's fitting so well, both the characters.
When you hear of wars beginning, this does not signal my return. These must come, but the end is not yet. The nations and kingdoms of the earth will rise against each other, and there will be famines and earthquakes in many places. But all this will only be the beginning of the horrors to come. Then you will be tortured and killed and hated all over the world because you are mine. And many of you shall fall back into sin and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and lead many astray. Sin will be rampant everywhere and will cool the love of many. I forgot this character always wears sunglasses, so I should do this. And what was? Let me do the last one. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and will cool the love of many. But those enduring to the end shall be saved. And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world, so that all nations will hear it, and then, finally, the end will come. So when you see the horrible thing told about by Daniel the prophet, standing in your holy place, note to the reader, you know what is meant. Then those in Judea must flee to the Judean hills. Those on their porches must not even go inside the pack before they flee. Those in the field should not return to their homes for their clothes. And woe to pregnant women and to those with babies in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for there will be persecution such the world has never before seen in all its history, and will never see again. In fact, unless those days are shortened, all mankind will perish, but they will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen people. Then, if anyone tells you the Messiah has arrived at such and such a place, or has appeared here or there, don't believe it, for the false Christ shall arise, and the false prophets, and will do wonderful miracles, so that if it were possible, even God's chosen ones would be deceived. See, I warned you. So if someone tells you the Messiah has returned and is out in the desert, don't bother to go and look, or that he is hiding at a certain place. Don't believe it, for as the lightning flashes across the sky from the east to west, so shall my coming be when I, the Messiah, return. And whenever the carcass is there, the vultures will gather. That's pretty fun. For those unaware of the show, that character's name is Dale. He's another King of the Hill character. Actor passed away not too long ago. Rest in peace. And for those also unfamiliar, there are four main characters in King of the Hill. Well, four main male friends. There's like a bunch of different characters that could be considered main, especially in the new show, which I have not seen. So, the third is William Fontaine de la Tour d'Autry. Let's see if I can do his voice. For Psalm 21, verse 9 through 11. Praise the Lord, you angels of his. Praise his glory and his strength. Praise him for his majestic glory and glory as of his name. Come before him, clothed in sacred garments. The voice of the Lord echoes from the clouds. God is of glory thunders through the skies. So powerful in his voice, so full of majesty. It breaks down the cedars, it splits the giant trees of Lebanon. It shakes Mount Lebanon and Mount Syrian. They leap and skip before him like young calves. The voice of the Lord thunders through the lightning. It resounds through the deserts and shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord spins and topples the mighty oaks. It strips the forest bare. They whirl and sway beneath the blast. But in his temple all are praising glory, glory to the Lord. At the flood, the Lord showed his control of all creation. Now he continues to unveil his power. He will give his people strength, and he will bless them with peace. I kind of assumed that Psalms would be the shortest part because the final character, Boomhauer, has a very, very, very thick accent, and I expected to only need to do it for a little bit. But Proverbs for today is chapter 7, verses 6 through 23. It's like a quarter of the page. It's some of the next one. But we're going to try it because this is the theme I thought of. All right, man, the Proverbs for today, chapter. Let's get started. I looked out the window in my house one day and I saw a simple-minded lad, young man lacking common sense, walking in the twilight down the street looking at the house from the way of a girl prostitute. He approached some saucy pair and dressed seductively. She branched the court, silent, seen on the street, master. Listening to every corner for men, mere lovers. Put her arm around him, kissed him, and softly looked at him and said, I just come to look at you and here you are. Come with me, and I'll fix you a wonderful dinner. And after that, when we're in bed, just bring me lovely cuddle sheets, find a little form for me, perfume myrrh, cinnamon, man. Come on, let's take a fiddle up until morning. Husband is away, on trip. That dang wall, motherfucker, won't return for 7 days. So she's doing him pretty much speech, coaxing and weeding until he yielded now. Couldn't resist flattery. He followed her as a not going to the butcher or a stag and trapped, just waiting to be killed with an arrow through his heart. He was as a bird flying in a snare and not knowing the fate waiting here. I think that actually went better than I expected. There was a lot of like vague details that weren't as important, so I could kind of just run through. So that was fun. I'm glad that that particular set I think worked well. Uh, so I hope you enjoyed today's reading. Hopefully you understood the last one. If you're not a native Southerner, I imagine that one was more difficult than usual. But anyway, so thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. And as always, God bless.